Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Should we turn that way? We are going to get started in just one moment. So I want. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you all so much for joining me on this live. Today, we're going to talk about what to consider when starting a beauty business. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jessica Fields. I'm the owner and founder behind the J Fields co-brand. I am an esthetician and I am a spa owner and a business and a life coach. And real briefly, this quarter, the first quarter of 2023, I am talking about foundational skills, building the business, and how to set your business up properly so that you can be more profitable from day one. Today, again, we're talking about what to consider when starting a beauty business. So the things that I'm going to share with you guys today are not in any specific order. They're all just things that you should consider at some point, research, and work on when you're getting ready to start your business. So the very first thing I want to talk to you about, just real quickly, so you see me looking down. Again, I'm looking at my notes. Hey, Queen Bee, thank you so much for joining. I'm just looking at my notes so I don't forget anything. So the first thing I want to share with you all, something that you should consider when you're starting a beauty business is your niche. And I know people use that term all the time, so I want to define it for you very quickly. A niche is a specialized segment of a market for a particular kind of product or a service. Now, a lot of people think, I don't want to niche down. I don't want to have a niche because that's going to close me off and prevent me from making the most money. And that's actually the wrong mindset to have. Niching down doesn't stop you from making more money. It actually helps you target your particular audience, the particular people that you can help the most. Think about doctors. You have general doctors that see you for general concerns, your annual checkup. But then you have specialty doctors. So if you go to your general doctor and you say, I have this problem, and they look into it and they go, let's bring in a specialist. That's someone who has niched down from being a general practitioner to being a specialty doctor. Oh, I look at heart concerns. I look at brain concerns. I look at bone concerns. I look at your feet only. I look at your skin only. Those specialists charge more money because they have not only they went to medical school, done their residency, have their license, they go back for additional training in that particular area. So niching down is not a negative thing. Niching down is an extremely positive thing. It helps you become an expert in one particular area. So when you're starting a beauty biz, you really need to consider, what is your niche? What is your specialized segment of the market that you are going to be working with specifically? So another thing you should consider when you're starting a beauty biz is what kind of products and services you'll offer in your business. And you should think about this before you start, so you have an idea of how you're going to be generating sales and what kind of sales you are going to be generating. I'll break down products a little bit later on in this live, but I just wanted to tell you that right off the top. Those are some other things you need to consider when starting a beauty business. Another thing you need to consider is your pricing strategy. Your pricing strategy is so important because if you are improperly priced, your business won't last long. You have to charge enough to cover your overhead. That means everything that's included to run your business. You have to include your cost of goods. You have to include your labor. You have to include, if you're an esthetician, your back bar, your supplies, your equipment. And you should be tracking, okay, if I buy this microdermabrasion machine, how many uses am I going to get out of it before it needs to be serviced or before it will no longer work? Okay, and this microdermabrasion machine, it has one-time use filters in it. So every client you have to change out those filters. When I bought the unit, it came with 100 filters. So I know right off the bat, I spent $5,000 on this microdermabrasion machine. I'm going to be able to get 100 uses out of it before I have to re-up on supplies. Those kind of things you need to think about. You need to think about what your KPIs are, so your key performance indicators. This lets you know what items you need to be working towards each day, each hour in order to make money. So your pricing strategy is highly important when you're considering starting a beauty business. Your pricing strategy actually is highly important to any kind of business, but I just want to drive it home with the cosmetic beauty business. How you need to be priced is so important because you need to include those different areas in your services and in your products. I mentioned this before with products, retail should be 30% of your revenue. So you absolutely should have some sort of retail available in your business. If you're an esthetician and you do facials, you should be selling skincare products for your clients to use at home in between their facials with you. If you are a lash stylist, you should be selling retail products that help keep the health of their natural lashes. If you are a brow girl, you should be telling people this is the brow gel you put on your face in the morning to hold your brows in place, or this is a product that's going to help your brow tint last longer. These are the kind of products you need to be using selling to your clients to be using in between their visits with you. This helps your bottom line. This helps your client reach their goals, and this helps your business. So be thinking about that kind of thing when you're starting a beauty business. What kind of retail products are you going to carry? Are they going to be someone else's products or are they going to be yours? Again, we'll break that down a little bit further into the live. But actually, let me back up really quickly. I'm talking about beauty business. People are always saying this, and I've been hearing this since I got into the industry back in 2004, and even more so when I went to aesthetic school to open my spa in 2018. Which actually, I thought about this last night, y'all. So I went to aesthetic school in 2018 in January, and I graduated in December. January of 2019, I started my business. It's January 2023. Y'all, I'm 5 years running my spa business, so I might have to do something. I just thought about that last night. I was like, oh, I gotta do something. I gotta share this with the people. But anywho, I heard all the time the beauty industry, the cosmetic industry, and cosmetic actually includes 6 categories, and I'll break that down in a minute. They're always talking about how saturated it is, how overly saturated, and that means it's convoluted, it's overflowing with people, it's overflowing with businesses, so you can't get in and make any money. That is so far from the truth. Let me give you some statistics. Actually, let me back up. The 6 main categories in the cosmetic industry: oral cosmetics, deodorants, toiletries, perfumes, makeup, hair care, and then skincare. Hair care is the second largest in the group. Skincare is the largest. Skincare is the largest because in 2021, 41% of the market funds went into that category. Skincare is the biggest in the cosmetic industry. In 2022, it was estimated in the United States, not talking worldwide, in the US, $49 billion, that's with a B, was estimated to be spent in the cosmetic industry. So that's across all 6 categories. But just think if the percentage stayed the same, 41% of $49 billion was spent here in the US alone. So you can't tell me there's not enough funds to go around to the businesses that currently exist and bringing on new businesses. You cannot tell me that. You cannot convince me there's not enough money to go around. You just have to figure out what your niche of the market is going to be so that you can craft your products and your services to solve their specific problems. That's what's important and a lot of people overlook. Those people who are telling you it's overly saturated, oh, don't get in that market, don't get in that industry, it's because they don't know how to get in and navigate it. That's your job, to do the research before you start to get into the market, the industry, and research what's your niche, what product or service you're going to create that's solving a very specific problem. And it can't just be a random problem. It must be a problem for someone that's really important, and I read this in a book, it's called a bleeding neck. So if a person wakes up and their neck is profusely bleeding, they're not worried about, paying the light bill today. They're not worried about what they're going to eat. Their main concern at that point is, how do I stop this bleeding from my neck? So you have to find what is the bleeding neck problem. So the most important problem this client has today, how can I solve that? Once you identify that, then you go and create a business, a product, and a service around that issue. And then you're going to drive home to your clients, these are the benefits and the features of me working with you, or me providing you this product or service. This is how I'm going to help stop your neck from bleeding. And that's just an example. And yes, it's out there, but I'm trying to show you the importance. Something highly important to them that day, in that moment. What can you help them solve? That's what you're going to build your business around. So another thing you need to consider when you're starting your beauty business is branding. Yes, it's important to have your story and have a way to share it with your clients, but you don't need to share it all the time, every time you get on social media. There's a time and a place to share it. And last week, I shared a live on Mission and Vision. I kind of talk about when you should share it. I highly encourage you to go and watch that video. It's not super long. I think it's like 20 minutes. And it'll help you break down of when you need to create your story and how you need to share it, and when you need to share it with your customers and your clients. But branding is not just your story. Branding is also the fonts you use, your logo, your packaging, your labeling, the design of your business overall. That all falls into branding. When you're branding your business, you have to think about yourself and how you exhibit your business, how you want your business to look. And when you're talking about your niche market, so who you're going to be working with, that target audience, how do you want them to see your business? However you want them to see that, that's how you need to brand your business, and you need to drive that home. Everything you do, you need to be thinking about your brand. Every time you get on live, you need to be thinking about your brand. Every time you go outside, you need to be thinking about your brand. Because if you are trying to create a luxury business, a really high-end business, you can't run outside with your hair all over your head, rollers in your head, bonnets on, holes in your clothes, mismatched clothes. You can't do that, because then that tells somebody, oh, that's not luxury, because she's not looking like luxury. She's looking like Walmart. And that's no shade against Walmart, because Walmart makes a lot of money. But typically the customers that come into Walmart are not always well put together. That's how we'll say that. And if you're thinking about your Nordstrom, your Saks Fifth Avenue, those customers that go in that store, they look a certain way. They carry themselves a certain way. So be thinking about how you want your brand to be perceived, so that you yourself from head to toe can begin to exhibit that in your brand. Now, I told you I would talk about products, the products that you offer in your business. Retail. Are you going to retail someone else's brand, or will you retail your own brand, or will you do a combination? When I first started out, I retailed only my brand of products. But as I continue to learn and get better in my field, I discovered some other brands and things that I did really want to incorporate with my products, and they work very well together. So now I retail about 3 different brands. In my spa, I obviously do my own. I do Victoria Diana, I do Skin Script, and I do Green Pill products. And it's a very, very select few of those products that I do. I don't do duplicates. So if it's a product that my brand carries, I'm not going to carry it if someone else's line. Products that I carry of other lines are products that I do not manufacture. And there is a reason for that. I am building a brand. I'm building a legacy. So I'm not going to continue to push somebody else's stuff when I can push my own products. So that's what I encourage y'all to do. Highly, highly, highly encourage you to have your own line of products. Now, some people think, oh, it's super difficult to create my own products. It's really not. And when I say create your own products, I don't mean you have to physically take your own hand and mix up some shea butter and some coconut oil and whip up a body butter. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you need to go out and source alpha hydroxy acids and jojoba beads and you're going to make an exfoliate. That's not what I'm saying. You actually can outsource a lab or another manufacturer or a private labeling company, and they will create the products from beginning. They'll package it. They can even label it for you. You can have complete autonomy of it, or you can assign it to somebody else, delegate to somebody else. Of course, if you put all that responsibility on somebody else, you are going to pay for it, and you have to police them, meaning you have to make sure that the quality of the product is the same with every lot, which means every batch of products, they call them lots. You have to make sure it's the same and it's consistent, so that when your client gets, for example, if a client orders my J-Fill Skin Co. brightening skin cleanser today, and then they order it 6 months from now, it's the exact same product. There's not a difference in the texture. There's not a difference in the efficacy of the product. Now, I will say this, there can be slight variances in color because the environment plays a major part of that, especially if you use natural ingredients. Sometimes the weather is bad, so the production of a color in a plant is a little bit less, or it may be more potent because the weather was fantastic. So by the time you get it and it's mixed into your products, the coloring is off a little bit. But you can always let your clients know it's okay if the color is off a little bit. We do work with natural ingredients and so on. But my point is, there are different steps and things that you can put in place to craft your own brand of products. I actually have a course. It's called the Product Creation Course that walks you step by step on how to do it. Inside of it, there are 5 modules. We go over business foundations, such as clarifying the brand, the business, defining the vision, your business structure, business funding. Then we move into research and development, which talks about handcrafting versus private labeling versus complete custom manufacturing, where you work with a company and you tell them what kind of product you want and they make it for scratch just for you. Private labeling is where they make it, it's one recipe, and they sell it to a lot of different companies, but they'll let you slap your label on it and nobody's going to know. When you go to H-E-B, is my favorite grocery store. I can go into H-E-B and say, I want grape jelly, but Concord is a popular brand of jelly here in Texas. I don't know if it's everywhere else, but it's here in Texas, Houston specifically. I can go and get Concord grape jelly, or I can get H-E-B's brand of Concord grape jelly. And sometimes private label companies will put on there, can be compared to, and then they'll tell you the brand name is compared to. That's typically private labeling. So almost the same, it's the brand name that you're paying for. Handcrafting your own products means, again, you're going to go out, you're going to create your recipe, you're going to test your recipe for efficacy, you're going to test it to make sure that it's not going to grow mold, you're going to completely test it to make sure it does what it needs to do, how long it lasts, and all of that. You do it, all of the work. Lots of fun in that. That's how I started my brand, but I break it down, the differences and how to get started. Then I talk about branding, your brand story, your brand elements. Your brand story is like how you craft your business, why you got started. Your brand elements is your fonts, your logos. We talk about packaging. We talk about labeling. We talk about your pricing strategy. And I really break down your pricing strategy because it's so important. A lot of people think, oh, well, if you're going to do a body butter, it should only be like $10 or something. Especially in today's market. If you are working with quality ingredients and you want a quality product, you have to figure out how much all of those individual things cost, where you're sourcing them from. You need to count it, the cost to have it shipped to you. You have to count it, how long it can sit on your shelf, your packaging, all of that. I go in depth on your pricing strategy. The next section in the course is marketing. We talk about your visibility strategy. We talk about niche marketing. We talk about social media marketing. Then we move into systems. Systems are so important, and I learned a lot later in my business how they can play a major role in your business, making it easier to run so you're not having to do everything yourself. And again, we break down the different business systems that you can have and automation tools. I actually give you lots of templates. I even give you over 70 vendors, that skincare, makeup, cosmetics, contract manufacturers, lashes, containers, packaging, testing facilities, wholesale markets, and I even break down insurance. You do have access to a private community. You get my Grow Your Beauty Brand workbook. You get an ultimate business checklist, vendor contact templates and tips, especially if you're working with people in other countries. And sometimes it's cheaper to outsource certain items. And I'm just going to say items. I'm not necessarily saying ingredients or packaging or whatever. Sometimes it's cheaper to outsource certain items outside of the country. And they have different customs and different ways to talk to one another. So I have a template that breaks that down. And then I also give you a business glossary. There are lots of terms that are used in the industry, and even I myself had to catch myself talking about aesthetics. There are lots of terms that the average person won't know. So I break some of that down for you to make it easier for you. This course can be purchased on my website. You get instant access to it. It's absolutely amazing to take you from an idea to actually putting your product out on the market. But that's products. That's retail. Highly, highly, highly encourage you to have products in your business to sell for retail. Services, we kind of briefly talked about that. You need some sort of, you don't have to have, let me correct myself. You don't have to have services when you're starting a beauty business, because you could just do products in retail. Let's see, the next thing. I briefly mentioned this in my course, business insurance. When you're starting a beauty business, you need insurance. Especially if you'll be crafting your own products or selling your own brand of products, you need insurance. Because unfortunately, there are people in this world that will use your product and then say they had a reaction or legitimately have a reaction. There are people that will come into your business, throw water on the floor, slip, and say, oh my God, I'm hurt, I need to sue you, or whatever the case. They just wake up each day thinking about how they're going to screw a business owner. And as a small business owner, sometimes that hits you so hard it can take you out of business. So we want to make sure that you are properly insured from day one. You're not going to start your business and then later on get insurance, because at any point somebody can come back and say, well, I got hurt before her insurance was in place, and then you have to pay everything out of pocket. That is a quick way to put yourself out of business. So you want to make sure you have proper insurance. That's for your property, if you have a physical location. If you have products, you want to have that product insurance. And some people who are solopreneurs, where you don't have another job somewhere else, you need insurance on yourself. If you yourself are hurt, how are you going to get funds into your business to continue paying your rent, to continue paying for whatever other expenses that you have contracts on that you're required to pay each and every month? So when you're starting a beauty business, what level of insurance do you need and where can you get it from? The next thing you want to consider when you're starting a beauty business is your strategy. What is going to be your marketing strategy? How are you going to tell people about your business? Remember, I've said this before, when you are operating a business, one of the number one things you need to do is have sales. And in order to have sales, you have to tell people about your business. You can't just tell them once, you have to tell them repeatedly. Statistics have shown us some people need to see your business 7 to 9 times before they'll ever buy from you. There are many businesses that are not afraid to market themselves. Think Fashion Nova, Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret. Places like this will bombard you with emails, text messages, social media ads, TV ads, radio ads, ads in magazines. And think about when you're looking at fashion magazines, what product ads do you see in there? You typically see cosmetic industry magazines. So think about what is going to be your strategy. Who is your target audience? Because remember, you're niched down. Where are they? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Pinterest? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Because each of those platforms have a different audience. LinkedIn is more professional. Facebook is a little bit more of our older generation. Think about that. Snapchat, TikTok. Where is your target audience going to be so that you can put your business in that format, in a language that they understand and that they speak? So another thing you need to consider when you're starting a beauty business, and these are highly important, the next ones I'm going to tell you about. FDA regulations, especially if you're crafting products. You must know what the FDA requires you to have on your label and what they will not allow you to have. Okay. So we're talking about FDA regulations, making sure that your product labels are actually following FDA regulations. The last thing you want to do is put a product out, you're selling it, and you find out it's not meeting regulations, and then you're hit with a fee for failure to do something. And I'll tell y'all this, I wrote a book, how to start your product. Is like part of my product creation course. Actually, initially it started out as a book, and then I turned it into a course because I started to share a lot more information. But initially when I wrote the book, I shared in the book a story of licensing and permits, which is the next thing that when you need to consider when starting a beauty business. Your taxes, your permits, and your licenses. You must know which ones you're required to do, when your reports are due, and you need to file them timely. The excuse, I didn't know, will not fly. The personal experience I had was I created a sales tax license. I applied for one because I'm selling retail products. And in Texas, you have to charge taxes on the products you sell. Now, the ingredients I buy from my vendors, I don't pay taxes on them. because I have the sales tax use permit, but I still have to charge my clients taxes on those products. And then I take that money and I give it back to the government. I don't get to keep it. I have to give it back to the government. But when I first started out, I applied for the license. I'm just using random dates. Say I applied for my license in February, but I wasn't actually going to start selling products until like May or June, so the summertime, because I was going to participate in summer markets. So February is still in quarter one of the year. So when quarter one closed in March, April 20th, taxes were due. But Jessica hasn't sold any products yet because Jessica's not intending to sell products until the summertime. So I don't file a tax report. Quarter two rolls around, I get a lovely little letter from the Texas Comptroller State of Texas saying, hey, you didn't file your report, but your type of business typically pays $15,000 worth of taxes each quarter. So here's your bill. How would you like to pay? We take checks and we take credit cards. Y'all, I was floored. So immediately I reached out to them. I was like, I haven't sold any products. That's great. Typically, this kind of business brings in that kind of money because I look forward to bringing that in next year or next quarter or next whatever. But I didn't do that. So I don't owe y'all this money. But they told me, oh, we're sorry to hear you didn't sell that, but you still had to turn in a report. What you were supposed to do is turn in a report that said I had 0 sales. My excuse was, well, I didn't know that. And they said, sorry, those are our rules. You should have done the research and read that on our website before you applied for this permit. So what we'll do is we'll go back and say you didn't have any sales, but because you did not turn in your permit, you failed to follow the rules of your permit, you now have to pay a late filing fee. So I have to pay a $50 fee. Now you might be thinking, oh, that's not so terrible. But each time that fee goes up, the longer you go without paying it or turning in your reports, they can revoke your sales and use permit. And if you are operating a business and you should be charging taxes on it and you don't have a permit, the fee for that is even higher. And again, the longer you go without paying it, the more it can increase and the chances of them not giving you a new permit. So these are things you should consider when starting a beauty business. What taxes, what permits, what licenses do you need for your city, for your county, for your state? Another thing, again, I'm in Texas, so I have an aesthetics license because I am an esthetician. I have a spa, so I have a salon license. Those are 2 different licenses with 2 different time frames of how long they're good for. If you don't have them in place, like for example, the aesthetics license, I'm not going to talk about the salon license today. The aesthetic license, I think initially it's like $100 maybe. And every time you renew, which is every 2 years in Texas, caveat, I'm talking Texas. Every state is different. Look into the Department of Licensing and Regulation for your state. In Texas, it's called Texas Department Licensing and Regulation, so TDLR. Renewal is every 2 years for an esthetician's license, and it's like $50. Super cheap. Never, ever, ever will I allow that permit and license to lapse. It gets more and more expensive to have it put back into reinstatement. But say you do let it lapse and you're still practicing aesthetic work. The fine is $10,000. And that group that manages it can decide, and they will send you to kind of like a trial, and it's not a trial by jury. It's there's a group, I think of 4 or 5 people, don't quote me off the top of my head, 4 or 5 people that manage the TDLR group. After they fine you that $10,000, you then have to go in before them and explain why you were doing this work without this license. And if they, for whatever reason, decide you did it on purpose, they felt like you were doing it maliciously, they can say, well, you know what? We're going to revoke your license and we're never going to allow you to get one again. So that means all the work you've put in to build that business has now gone because you can't operate that business again because you have been terminated and allowed to get that permit. So I'm really stressing to you how important it is to consider what tax licensing and what permits and business licensing you need for the business that you want to operate in your state. In the beauty industry, there are lots of services that fall into gray areas. And so people kind of skirt things and they do them. And when I say gray areas, I'm talking like yoni steaming, sauna detox, teeth whitening, things like that. Those kind of fall into gray areas. Then there are some things that are clear as day. I told y'all I went to aesthetic school in 2018. In 2018, estheticians were allowed to dermaplane. Dermaplane is where you take a scalpel, an extremely fine, sharp knife, and it's scraped against the skin to remove that fine, it's called vellus hair, but the really fine short hair, and if most of the time it's kind of blonde because it blends in with your skin. Now some people, unfortunately, it's really dark and obvious, but dermaplaning is a great way to remove that hair and that dead skin. You guys see it on social media all the time. It looks great. Your skin looks super good. So back when I first went to aesthetic school, we were allowed to do that. In 2020, no, it was right after I graduated because I paid for the class. Right after I graduated in 2019, they changed the rules. A regular esthetician was no longer allowed to practice that. In order to perform that procedure, you had to be working under a medical director or a physician, a medical doctor. If you are not operating with them, that means your insurance is not going to cover it. So if you're dermaplaning somebody and you nick them, you really cut up their face and they're upset about it, they can sue you and you're paying for that out of pocket because your insurance is not going to cover you for a service you were not legally allowed to perform. So you have to do your due diligence. What services are you allowed to operate? And the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation website will tell you point blank what you can and cannot do. Sometimes you have to do some digging to do it, but it will tell you point blank. If you cannot find it or confirm it, call them, email them, mail them. They will make sure that you understand their rules because they don't want to have to come after you, just like you don't want them to come after you. So again, something to consider when starting your beauty business. Now, the last thing, oh, no, not the last thing. I have others. I didn't realize I had a whole nother page. When you are starting a beauty business, choose a name that's easy to remember and relatively easy to spell, especially if you're going to incorporate that into your website. I recommend you Google business name generator so that you can get some ideas. You put in like keywords around what you want to do, and then it gives you suggestions on names. When you find a name, Google it. See if there are any businesses that already exist. Go look up thatname.com. See if it already exists. You don't want to, even if a business is in another state, you don't want to use a name that's similar to someone else's because, if your business takes off, you don't want someone to Google and come across that business and they assume it's you, or someone looking for that business and they assume it's you, and you guys have different levels of customer service, different products or different services. You want to be unique. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your business name. Another thing to consider when starting your beauty business is your education. You must constantly be looking to improve and to learn. Every year I go to at least one, sometimes twice. I go to different conferences and I might attend them virtually or I might attend them in person. I go and I'm able to learn how to do the services I currently offer better. And sometimes I learn completely new services or techniques that I can bring back to my clients. It makes all the difference in helping someone reach their skin goals and helping them feel like they were heard, they are appreciated, they are received. And so that's what you all always need to be doing. Now, I just gave you an example for conferences to learn your products and services better. You also need to be reading. Let me see if I have some books. I have 2 books up here. Two business. Well, this one's a business book. Why Women Buy. This one I feel like is a book to live by. It's The Complete Works of Florence Sheen. It talks about the game of life and how to play it. Your word is your wand. The secret door to success and the power of the spoken word. This one is more for mindset. This one is more of helping my business and tailoring my message to my direct market because most of my clients are women. But constantly be looking to improve your knowledge so that you can do better and provide better to your clients and customers. Another thing to consider when you're starting the beauty business, and this one again I think is super, super important, customer service. We are typically working with women. Now, we absolutely can and do work with men, but typically you're working with women, and there's a certain way you have to handle women, how you have to talk to them. Women are more emotional creatures. We think how we feel. We remember how a service made us feel. And so the next time we want to book it, we're going to think about that. And if it was a bad experience, you kind of relive that. I can tell you right now, when I do Brazilian waxes for clients who have been somewhere else and they tell me, oh, my last experience was terrible, so I'm giving it one more shot. I take absolute perfect care of those clients because I want them to realize that experience is not your experience with my business. And 9 times out of 10, actually, I can say 10 out of 10. I've never had a client that came to me from somebody else and said it was a horrible experience and they leave with me saying it was a horrible experience. They always leave and go, oh my God, it wasn't that bad. In fact, You were great. It was this, it was that. Raving reviews. But that's because I strive to provide excellent customer service, and that's something you should be doing too. 3 more things, and then I'm gonna get out of here because this lesson has gone on for quite a while. Your brand. Remember when I was talking about the different aspects of the brand? I want you guys to realize, as the owner of your business, you are your brand, especially if your face and your name is associated with it. So I actually did talk about this earlier when I was talking about how people look when they go into Walmart versus how they look when they go into Nordstrom or Saks Fifth Avenue and all of those stores. How do you look? How do you carry yourself? Especially if you have clothes on that have your business name. How are you carrying yourself? You want people to identify and associate a certain behavior, a certain way to act, a certain way to talk with your business. So that's something you want to keep in mind. You are your brand. So if you're out in the streets cussing and acting a fool and fighting, that's the kind of level people are going to think about with your brand. Keep that in mind. Another thing I want to tell y'all about is, as you're building your brand, don't share everything with everybody, especially in the building stages. I am a firm believer there's power of life and death in the tongue. So if you are telling people, I'm planning to do this, and this year, and the person is a silent hater, so that means they don't want to see you succeed, they are going to crap all over your dream behind your back. They are going to actually, she ain't gonna do that. She gonna fail. She gonna spend all that money setting up that storefront, and then nobody's gonna come into her business. But see, the thing is, you don't know they're trash talking your business behind your back, so you have no way to fight those words they have spoken. So now you have to fight the natural, and you have to fight some supernatural, because you have to deal with what they put out in the universe, what they put out in the atmosphere. So be mindful of what you share about your business, about your dreams, to everybody. I highly encourage you to have a circle of friends, but keep it tight. And that circle of friends, they need to be like-minded people. They need to be people who have some aspirations similar to you and looking to succeed. And even then, still, you're not sharing every single thing with someone. The last tip I want to share with you, or things you need to consider when you're starting a beauty business, is we're not a jack of all trades. To be a jack of all trades, you are an expert at nothing. You want to be an expert at something. And when you are not the expert, seek help to complete that task. Otherwise, it's going to take you a significantly longer time to get it done. I've said this before. You either have time and no money, or you have money and not a lot of time. So let me make sure I said that right. You have time, but you don't have a lot of money, or you have a lot of money, but you don't have a lot of time. So pay for what you need if you can pay for it. If you cannot pay for it, spend the time to learn how to do it and perfect it at a good level. But the caveat is, don't allow making it perfect to hinder you from ever getting started. Get it to the best of your ability, but launch. Don't just keep sitting on it and thinking, okay, I got to work on it a little bit more, and eventually I'm going to get it there. Do your due diligence so you can put out quality work, but don't hold back on it too long. So those are the things I wanted to share with you all of what you need to consider when you're starting a beauty business. Let me check and see if we have any questions. No, not on there. Okay. For those of you who are catching the replay, if you guys have questions, as usual, drop them down in the comments and I will definitely come back and answer them. Today is Thursday the 19th. I'm going to tell y'all what to come back and catch for our next live. So on the 24th, come back and we are going to talk about business plans. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to come on at 12 o'clock. So that's your lunchtime. Hopefully you can take lunch around that time. You can either listen to me or you can listen and watch me. Grab your notebooks. Make sure you're taking good notes. I would love for y'all to catch me live so that you can ask your questions at this time. If you guys want to work with me, click the link in the bio. We do have clarity sessions and master strategy sessions available. Those sessions are available on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I look so forward to the many things we're going to accomplish in quarter one. Y'all have an amazing, amazing Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me.